Do you believe that the changes in the government will take place organically, where the nature of the people of Israel will change, and therefore the people elected into government will be of a better nature, and accordingly, like dominoes, the changes that we desire will take an effect, or there'll be more of more of an outside approach where the people will, I guess, rise up against the government in protest what they see is going on, and the change will occur that way in a less organic fashion.
I do not believe in historical developments that just happen, just take place, without someone planning and thinking about it for a long time before. Right, the communist revolution in Russia in 1917, Le Minyanan, did not take place because the day before Lenin decided this would be a good idea. They were the communists were working on this for decades before it happened. The same is true of Zionism. Herzl began speaking about Zionism in the 1890s, Le Minyanan. It took the better part of 60 years for it to come to fruition. It was a long process, but the people felt, even without really knowing and without being able to even define what they were trying to do precisely, they knew they were moving towards something, and there was a certain kind of will, even though it was a very sort of amorphous will, but there was a certain national will. What I'm trying to say is, I do not believe there will be significant and substantial change for the better, because whatever reform plans actually get off the ground and may be implemented now, this will not fundamentally change this country. They will, if everything that's being discussed is actually implemented, then yes, it will make a certain difference, and it won't even be an insignificant difference. But to truly change the direction of Jewish history, there has to be a certain critical mass of people, of Jews, who know that it is our job to replace the current reality with a different reality. And that's what we need to be thinking about and working on.
If I understand correct, in a sense, a combination of the two possibilities, where, as you said, a critical mass of the people change their ways, but there's also, it's not necessarily done from within the change.
I don't think that real change can come from within the current system, because it's based on different assumptions and also different. It seeks to implement a different kind of reality, to create a different kind of society. For a real change, you have to have people, some kind of revolutionary movement that really perceives that, what we have here is, we've been presented with a certain reality, but that's not to say that we have to accept this reality as it is. We have to take what we have as a starting point, but we have to work towards that which we know is correct and required. And what is that? That is a truly Jewish state based on the Torah.
So what can we do about it then, to change that?
The first thing is not to believe that it'll happen by itself.
No, of course not. That's impossible. That I totally
and also, I think we need to wean ourselves off a classic religious Zionist ideology, which is essentially based on this idea that somehow it'll just evolve in the right direction from what we have. There's too much identification with the Zionist movement, which was only intended by Hashem, the way I see it, as a stopgap measure. It was designed as a temporary ideology and reality in order to bring about a certain change within Jewish people, which it did. Not everything it did was good, not by any means. And many things that were done need to be undone. But Hashem runs the world. So Hashem decided to bring about this major shift in Jewish history, in the direction of the Jewish nation. This movement will come into existence. This character, Theodor Herzl, never been inside a shul in his life, he's going to be the spokesman for the Jewish people. Well, how strange is that? But there you have it. That's how it
He
is.
has a beard.
He had a nice beard. That's true. He also had syphilis, but that's another problem. It's really strange that we needed a guy like him to galvanize enough Jews to sow the seed of this idea in their minds. But that's how Hashem decided to do it, because it looks like there was no other way to do it. So it was done that way. We don't tell Hashem how to run the world, but Hashem does tell us what to do in the world. Where's that? It's in the Torah. In the Torah, we were told how the world should look, how the Jewish people certainly should look, how we should function, what we should aspire to, and that's what we should be discussing. Whereas I find now the Haredi world is correct in essentially writing off the Zionist enterprise, because they're right that it's not the real answer to anything. On the other hand, the Zionist religious approach is also incorrect, because they are much too invested in identifying with the Zionist movement and with all that implies. And that means this was before there was a state. Once there was a state, that means identifying with the state altogether. You can't fight against something if you believe in it too much. Correct? So you have to cease believing in it too much and understand that it's just something you have to deal with and live with for now and improve on and eventually replace. Mm-hmm. And the first step is to inculcate these ideas in more and more people. That's I think is the first step.
So we talked about the fact that in order for there to be legitimacy to any government, there has to be support by the people. Meaning, for example, if you have a court but no one believes in keeping the law, then that court has no power. So that leads me to the question of, if we have, what we're working for, proper, a Sanhedrin with all the proper courts, that observe the Torah, etc. And we live in a world where I think for the last 200 years maybe, where many Jews not only don't know the laws, they don't care. Actually, let's start with they don't care, but also they don't even know the laws. And I don't know if we've ever had a period of history where we were in the same position. Maybe we did. Maybe in times of Ezra, I know a lot of people who came were not very well knowledgeable of the laws. And
it's true.
But I was just wondering what your perspective is on, how to bring people closer to what you're talking about. Not only people who care about this and at least know something, but people who are completely disconnected but are still Jews.
Clearly, we are obligated to bring the truth of Torah, the message of Torah, to as many people as possible, in as many ways as possible, whether it's in writing, whether it's in a video on the internet, whether it's in a gathering like this gathering here this evening, whether you're studying in a yeshiva right now, correct? Well, you're doing that because you believe you need to know more about the Torah. And there are many other people doing the same thing, and many more people have to do the same thing. But of course, the real final, forgive the expression, the final solution, the ultimate solution, perhaps is a better term, is that we have a regime that wants the Torah to be the centerpiece of Jewish society in Eretz Yisrael, and that can only happen when you have the people who are really at the top are such Torah Jews who understand that it's their business to make that happen. And that's why Rambam writes. So we have a Rambam here? Well, actually, no, I have it here. I think I have it here. I have it. Rambam at the beginning of Ilchot Malachim u'Milhamot. I'm sorry, wrong chapter. Not the beginning, I meant to say Perek Yod Aleph. That's what I should have said. Chapter 11. Ve'im ya'amod melech mibeth David. Im does not mean if, really, it means in when. Because this is inevitable that it should happen. That a king, a Jewish leader will arise. We have to discuss that another time perhaps as well, not now. How that happens, how does he arise, where does he come from? A Torah Jew, and he will, if necessary, force the Jewish people to follow the Torah, and to enforce the Torah and make it paramount in Jewish life. And he will fight the Jewish people's enemies. Such a person, we can begin to assume, is the Mashiach referred to by the Nevi'im. In other words, it's not assumed that everybody will necessarily, from their own volition, do the right thing. Sometimes, in fact, frequently in human affairs, the authorities have to enforce things. Laws have to be enforced. The Torah also has to be enforced. Let me tell you something about enforcing or telling people simply the facts as they are. I know a lot of people who will tell you, and they may be right to some extent, that, telling people who don't keep Shabbat, you have to keep Shabbat, and if you don't, you're liable to be put to death for desecrating the Shabbat. Is that true? It's true. Is that going to convince a lot of people to become Shabbat observant? A lot of people would say no, it's not going to work. Most people don't want to hear that. And it's true, most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't keep Shabbat, don't want to hear that. That's true. But I know for a fact, because I met such a person some years ago, who grew up in Europe in a very assimilated home, family that of Jews from Russia who obviously went through three generations of Shemada under the communist regime. They arrived in Germany. He grew up in Germany, a totally assimilated home. And you know why he was Chozeh B'Tshuvah? Because he heard a YouTube video of a certain well-known rabbi on YouTube who simply said in his shiur, a Jew is chayav to keep Shabbat, and if you don't, you're chayav mitha, you're worthy of being put to death. And he understood this guy means what he says. This is the truth. This is the bottom line. And he said, I heard that. He said, that was the first time in my life that anyone said to me that if you don't keep Shabbat, you're chayav mitha. No one ever said that to me. And it shook him up.
Wow.
And he became a Baal Tshuva because of this statement of this rabbi. So maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but it certainly works for some people. And maybe more people have to say that. Maybe more rabbanim have to actually say that. Tell it like it is.
Mm. And
maybe other people need a different approach. I'm not discounting that. But to say it doesn't work at all is not true.
Sure.
At any rate, laws have to be enforced. And it's the purpose of a Jewish government to enforce the Torah. Do I envisage here in Eretz Yisrael today and in the coming generations that this will be a process that won't happen overnight? Yes, that is what I envisage. Yes, but we should not walk in the following the footsteps of those religious, in some cases bearded Jews who last night gave speeches at some rally to the effect that we have to reach a compromise with the leftists that we discussed before about this judicial reform. We don't have to achieve any compromise at all. We have to enforce our will, because a majority of the Jews in this country, first of all, because it's true, it's right, it's correct. Mm-hmm. It's not in line with the Torah exactly, but it's less removed from the Torah than the other system, the other ideas. It's also the democratic will of a majority of the Jewish voters in this country by a long shot. Okay. But there is a certain stream within the Zionist religious world that is simply spiritually and psychologically they're enslaved to the secular world. They don't feel that they can actually stand up against them and say, no, we don't agree to that, we want something different, and fight for it, and not back down like Margaret Thatcher, as I said before. You can have 364 economists to tell you we're all wrong, but if you know that you're right, then you go ahead and do what's right. And 2 years later everyone saw she was right. The same is true here. You don't have to please these leftists who have been lording it over us for 3 decades and destroying the Jewish people. And they have. No question. On 3 occasions, the governments over the last decade or more proposed legal solutions, what to do with all these illegal individuals who cross the border illegally from Egypt into Israel, from Eritrea, from Sudan. They're all busy running around and terrorizing the good Jews of southern Tel Aviv nowadays. Ask anyone who lives there and they'll tell you. But the Supreme Court, in their great wisdom, rejected all these possibilities because they run the country, not the government. So they're all still here, and nothing could be done. Every possible suggestion was shot down. We don't have to compromise with such people. We have to fight such people and not feel that we have to please them in any way. We don't have to please them. We have to overrule them.
I hope that if we win, they join us.
We'll see what happens. But we don't have to knuckle under to their threats, etc.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.